Hi everybody. It's been a while since I did a kind of a breaking the fourth wall video. A while back I did a video talking about the kind of camera gear that I use. Today I wanted to talk about the sound, because being a sound engineer, sound is fairly important, and hopefully you'll agree with me that my voiceover sounds fairly decent. There is a reason for that, and that is that, I mean, even you can see a clip on mic, which I'm going to talk about. We are using this. So, depending on what I'm doing, where I am, I use a variety of things. I'm just going to cut to the camera audio so that you can see why I don't use it. This is the camera audio. It probably sounds like I'm frying an egg in the middle of some sort of fire alarm. And it turns out that a lot of cameras, even good cameras, the onboard microphones or the onboard microphone preamps aren't very good. They can be quite noisy. Actually using the camera's onboard audio, I'm about 3 meters away from the camera using a 35mm lens, and that's too far to get a decent signal. Not with everything else that's going on around it, and the camera itself makes quite a bit of noise with a fan to keep it cool. One of the things that I use is I'm actually using my phone with this lapel. You'll have seen this in several of the videos that I've done. At least you'll have seen the little lapel if you were looking closely enough. You might not have seen this because I usually tuck it away somewhere. This is my iPhone 7. I have been doing this method with the iPhone 6 and even the iPhone 5. This lapel mic is a Røde SmartLav Plus, and it was designed specifically to plug into an iPhone. You can get adapters to use it with other things, and I'm going to talk about that here. So I'm using the Røde Rec app, which is Røde's own recording app. It's simple enough. I paid for the upgrade. It was only a few pounds because that meant that I could record in 48 kilohertz 24-bit, which is exactly what the camera runs at and what my Premiere projects run at. And then with the 7, I'm having to use this stupid little dongle where I didn't have to do that originally, which was the reason why this was convenient and is now a little less so. The sound coming off it isn't incredible, but it's workable, and I'll show you. We'll do a cut to a Premiere project where I'll show you. I'll do a bit. It'll be a bit meta. I'll be showing you this project within this within this video, so it's a bit like, oh, I'll be showing you something that but with a bit of noise reduction, a bit of the right EQ, a bit of compression, you can get a usable sound out of this. If we're out and about in the field and either I don't want to use my phone for some reason, or if I'm recording 2 people, I've got a Zoom H1 here, tiny little thing. There's now the Zoom H1N, which I believe is a small upgrade. But this has been a faithful piece of gear for us for a long time. Chris bought one for himself, and then we used it so much that we just went and bought one ourselves. We found that generally wireless packs on microphones can be really useless. They can drop out, they can have glitches, they can have quite a lot of static noise depending on what else is going on around you. So we found the easiest way was have one of these with a clip-on microphone, record it separately and synchronize afterwards. And we found that just putting the 2 files together in post was infinitely better in terms of quality, especially in a run and gun type situation, than spending half an hour setting up sound. This is using a little adapter because the SmartLav's got one of these 4-pole jacks that's the same as what an iPhone headset would use, so the microphone wouldn't work with a lot of things. So there's just a little adapter that just fits there into the H1, and that's how we do that. Now, moving back on to the Daddy, I'm going to put this in my pocket. If we have the time, the quiet, the setup, then I use this beast, which you will see above me. This is the Sennhieser MKH416, often nicknamed the Hollywood mic. This thing was an absolute blessing, but when we got it, it was a complete dog. When we got this, we got it really cheap because it didn't work properly. And we didn't know why. We worked out in the end that it's a 416T. And it's T powered, not as in like the thing that makes Britain go, not like, cup of tea, 2 sugars. No, T power is a 12-volt German standard that alternates plus minus plus minus. It's kind of like AC. It's horrible. And pretty much no modern devices support it. So no matter what we did, we couldn't get this thing working. Years later, we found a company that made phantom power to 12T power converters. So there's a silver barrel on the end of it, and I'll cut the camera to that. And that meant that suddenly we could use this with standard equipment. And that's where this Old Faithful came in. This thing has been halfway around the world with us. And we're kind of due an upgrade on it, but for what we use it for now, it's absolutely fine. This is a Zoom H4n. Are there better recorders than this? There are now. The price point we were at the time, this was absolutely, brilliant. It's got 2 XLR inputs on the bottom, so you can have 2 phantom powered microphones. It's got 2 mics on the front, which you can record at the same time to get like ambient noise. So if ever we're out and we're doing what you might describe as a proper video or some sort of, budget drama, then we'll use a shotgun mic or a proper like interview mic plugged into this thing, and that gets us through those. In the studio, however, I have the luxury of being able to plug that shotgun mic into one of our preamps. So I plug that in to the Audient ASP800 on one of the super channels with the iron mode turned on. And that's a transformer thing that makes it just sound that much richer, that much nicer. It sounds like a classic kind of 70s recording because that's what all the 70s gear was. It was all transformer based. And even in our control room here, it's fairly well acoustically treated and it's still a little bit live in here. It has to be a bit live. But that means that if I just use a standard condenser mic, it sounds a bit like a cave because that microphone is not excluding the rest of the room. When you're doing a voiceover like this, shotgun mics are great because they hone in on exactly what's in front of them and cancel out pretty much everything to the sides and behind. That's the entire point of them. All the holes on the grill on the side are what's called an interference tube, I think. Yeah, so it's an interference tube, and what that does is anything from the sides comes in and just gets cancelled. So that's pointed at my mouth from just out of camera shot, and you get a relatively clean, relatively full sounding voiceover, which if you can get hold of one of these or something similar, they will take your vocal sound and really enhance it by a lot. I have to do a lot less EQing and a lot less noise reduction on this kind of thing, and it makes my life a lot easier, especially in the studio. There have been some videos where you've been able to see it in shot, and I'm not really bothered because it looks great. I, especially as a sound nerd, I'm quite happy to show off my mic. If it was a drama or something, you definitely don't want that. But for what we do, it's a bit of a, they're not cheap, I have to say. If you buy one new, because if you buy a new one, it'll be phantom powered, which means it'll instantly work with all your gear, unlike what we had to contend with. But if you're not in a situation where lapel mics work, if you're in a situation where you've got to do dialogue on a set, or you've got to do a sound for voiceover that is absolutely tip-top, that's the way to go. If you have to do something that's portable, these work absolutely perfectly. And just don't use your onboard camera audio, because that's probably the worst sound you're going to get. So here we are in this kind of meta situation where I'm showing you this project inside this project. If I zoom out, you'll see there's a big blank space here. That's where this bit that we're doing now is going to go. So what I wanted to show you in Premiere, I appreciate that most of you won't be Premiere users, but for those that are, you'll recognise this setup. So the layers here are the video and the layers here are the audio, and it's the audio that we're interested in, of course. So if I was to solo track 1, and that's too far to get a decent... That's the onboard camera audio. So what I do is I take my external sound and I synchronize the two together. So in this case I've got 3, but that's because this being a bit of an unusual video showing you the sound types, I'm running all 3 simultaneously. For the first half of the video then, I was using the Røde SmartLav, and what I'm missing, there we are, audio track mixer. You'll see there's a lot of plugins, and this will be very familiar to any of you who use the DAW because you've got your insert points and you send points, and everything's a traditional style little mixer. So let's have a look. So on both of these channels, this one channel 2 here and this one channel 3, they are my external audio sources. Number 2 is the Sennheiser microphone. That looks darker right here because I've disabled it, and if I go further on you'll see that that's the point where I switch from this audio to this one, because that one then becomes disabled. So let's play a little bit of the 416 because that's relatively simple the way that I have that set up. I have 3 plugins in my chain. So the first one, make Britain go, not like cup of tea, 2 sugars. No, T-Power is a 12-volt German. So the first plugin that I use is one called Adaptive Noise Reduction, which is, as far as I'm aware, made by iZotope for Adobe. I might be wrong there, but I'm fairly sure, because a lot of these definitely are. And it's really useful for just taking out a little bit of background noise. If I bypass it, standard that alternates plus minus plus minus. It's kind of like AC. It's horrible. It's hard to hear the difference there, and that's because the MKH416 mic is really good with noise rejection. It's got a very low self-noise floor. The room that I'm in doesn't have very much external noise at all. In fact, the only thing that's making noise in there apart from me is the camera with its fans inbuilt, which is a good 3 meters away from me and isn't particularly loud. But the fans in that camera, if I just solo the camera audio again, and pretty much no modern devices support it, you can hear that those the microphone in the camera is right next to the fan that's in the camera. So there is no way to get even a better quality microphone in the camera to have a better result, because the proximity of that fan in there to that microphone is about that. Whereas a good 3 meters or 10 feet, however you want to describe it, between an isolating microphone and that fan, you just can't hear it. But I use a few decibels of noise reduction just as a kind of belt and braces thing. You never know what might happen in the background. Chris might decide to scratch his nose or something, and that helps. I'm not a big fan of gates. I'd rather use something like kind of clever noise reduction. Then there's the multi-band compressor. Now this is from iZotope, or at least that's what it said in the last version. This seems to be missing now. Is a 12-volt German standard that alternates plus. Without this, it's much lower gain. It's plus minus. It's kind of like AC. It's horrible. Pretty much no modern devices support it, so no matter what we did, we couldn't get this thing working. That reminds me, that sniff there. It's horrible. I'm just going to cut that out, and apologies for the sound there. And horrible. And pretty much. In fact, I'm just going to cut that whole section out, so of course, when you watch this video, you won't even see or hear that little sniff there. You'll just see an edit. But that's the magic of editing. So after that, I've got a de-esser that's just. And pretty much no modern devices support it. There we go. No matter what not doing much unless I get particularly animated and sibilant. Years later, we found a company that made phantom power. But largely speaking, that MKH, the shotgun mic, is pretty much ready to roll. However, if I go back to the other mic and turn the plugins off, but 2 of which are the noise reduction, which is slightly heavier at 7 dB, and the multiband compressor, which is doing exactly the same thing. If I turn those off, if I bypass them, better in terms of quality, especially it does sound a little more full, a little more nasal, and that's with this EQ on. So if I turn this off, run and gun type situation, then spending half an hour setting up sound. This is using. That's how the lav mic sounds. Because lav mics tend to sound like that, it's strapped to my chest, so it's got more of that 400, 500 hertz chesty frequency in it. It's not got the presence peak because it's not pointed right at my mouth. So you have to adapt to EQ to that. Some of the newer, like really high-end DPA mics have that kind of thing inbuilt. But if I'll turn the multiband and the noise reduction on and leave that parametric EQ off, and you'll hear the difference. Adapter, because the SmartLav's got one of these 4-pole jacks that's the same as what an iPhone. Doesn't sound particularly bad, but I then turn this EQ on. If a headset would use, so the microphone wouldn't work with a lot of things. So there's just a little adapter that just fits there into the H1, and that's how we. And it just helps it to sound a little bit less chesty, which. If I have to use a lav mic in some particular situation, that's what I would do. So, back to me in the studio. Anywho, that is all for this video. I didn't want to be going on as long as I did, so apologies for that. But check out the rest of our videos. There's a lot more coming. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this, feel free to check out our other videos, as you can find here, or check out our Facebook and Twitter, or our Patreon page, which helps us to make more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.